What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about what I tried to post earlier this week. So if you got a snippet of it, you got a little sneak peek at what I was trying to cook up. But for some reason, the audio got all cooked out and whatnot. But we're really going to be going over Absolute Batman issue number 11, which if you've been reading this series, you should know this thing is crazy. Now, I did have to go back and read it twice to actually fully understand it, because it did have a little bit of a confusing layout for it. But whenever you actually understand it and you take a second to take a step back and realize it, it's insane still. So basically, this whole issue is an origin story for Absolute Bane and how he is more or less an equal to Batman in almost every single way. Now, picking up off of issue 10, the last thing that we got was Batman escaping after fighting Bane inside of Arkham after he was held for a few months and experimented on. He threw him into a cell where he ended up finding Killer Croc, and then he rode Killer Croc out of Arkham. So here, we don't really necessarily pick up exactly with where that left off. We more so pick up with Alfred speaking to Bruce Wayne. Now, I'm assuming this is to kind of go off of okay, Bruce Wayne escaped, and then he found Alfred again, and they're discussing what's going on. But it's really kind of from the perspective of Alfred telling a story. The whole issue is essentially, and it starts off with explaining how for generations, Bane's family was the leader of these freedom fighters of this island. They went back and forth with this authoritarian government that they, stood their ground against whenever his grandfather was leading them, and then again when his father was leading them. But it ultimately, they got captured and essentially tortured for years to come. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a total of 9 years that Bane was tortured and everything. But it kind of goes into the meaning and the symbolism of the dove that's on his mask, and how they look to this bird to fly to the skies and be set free and have freedom. Now, a lot of people kind of get their interpretation of Bane from the Harley Quinn show. So a lot of people think that he's just some big hulking mass of destruction that's an idiot. But realistically, the original Bane from back in the day with the issue where he breaks Batman's back, if I'm not mistaken, what was it called? It escapes me right now. I'm pretty sure it's going to come to me. It's dark something. But yeah, it kind of alludes to the idea that, for months, Bane was watching Batman and, studied him meticulously, and then released villains one by one to wear him down before breaking into the mansion, and then, having his way with Batman and breaking his back. This Bane is a little similar, but a lot that's very contradicting. A little similar, but a lot different. The origin that we get for him is very similar also to Christopher Nolan's Bane from the movies. But in this universe, it is a lot more gritty and grounded and stuff, and just a little bit more extravagant, I suppose you could say, in some ways. But we ultimately get this point where Bane comes into his life where he meets with the Joker, for, lack of a better term. We've all but been confirmed that it's the man who never laughed. They haven't outright called him the Joker, but it's heavily alluded to that it is the Joker in this universe, and he's just some sort of super operative that's pulling all the strings from behind the curtain and everything. But he has exchanges a few words with Bane, and then ultimately, he whispers something to him, and then they go their separate ways. You never really find out what was said, but there shortly after, Bane decides to, kill his father and take over the Empire. And it almost kind of shows that he was planning this for a long time, because after he kills his father, he then goes on to, start conquering different cities and countries and winning wars and killing politicians and all this other stuff that, sets his plan into motion, which eventually brings him to Gotham City. Now, it does elaborate a little bit on what the Venom does in this universe. It allows Bane to have full control over all muscle fibers. Gosh, I almost said muscle fibers. All muscle fibers in his body, allowing him to grow his muscles like, we have come to expect for Bane. But it also allows him to grow his intellect and expand his mind and allow him to, fully study and understand things in a completely different way. I think in the way that the comic book actually puts it, it goes like from like understanding sentences and stories to being able to hold full on books inside of his head and recite them. And I think that that's just absolutely insane because it plays into the fact that he is a genius that is all but, on the same exact level with Batman. And I think it's going to offer a whole different opportunity for them to have an interesting, fight between each other because, we have Batman who's supposed to be a master at all martial arts and stuff. And then he's fighting this guy who's 3-4 feet taller than him. Mind you, this version of Batman is 6'9", 400 pounds. So this dude is like 9 feet tall, 500-600 pounds too. If not, now he's honestly probably like closer to 700 or 800 the way that he looks. But, it allows him to, pick apart Bruce Wayne in such a different way. And we already see that because Alfred is just going on to explain to him that if he were to tackle this head on, Bruce Wayne would stand no chance. And we actually get a glimpse of that as they fight. And the reason why I had to go back and read it again was because I thought that this was actually happening. He destroys Bruce Wayne. So much so that he like rips an arm off, and then goes to like beat him some more, rips his other arm off, and then crushes him and starts beating his face in with the battle axe. But before he kills him, you like see this panel of him taking him to these doctors to be worked on. Which, mind you, whenever he crushes him with that battle axe, we get this sick panel of his face just all crushed in and his teeth are all messed up and his eyeballs all like down here and shit by his mouth. It was bizarre. Very, very brutal. But it's interesting because I was like, Bruce Wayne's like a normal guy. But I mean, I suppose in the last issue, they did kind of allude to the fact that they were injecting him with small amounts of venom. So at the time I was like, okay, well, I can see how he could potentially survive a little bit. Like he is getting like more superhuman-esque properties. But then it goes on to show that like Bane, if he really wants to, he moves into these cities and into these like districts and he takes them over from within and then makes them his own. Just like how if Batman were to attack him head on right now, he would destroy him, break him down just as he's done every single time before that they've fought, and then turn him into a puppet essentially for them and their cause. And we get this insane panel of like a robot-esque Batman with Venom going through all of his veins and everything, and he's just like holding this badass grenade launcher, and he just looks sick. It's like if they mashed Bane and Batman together, and obviously like that's what they were going for, but it is just bananas. I freaked out at first because I was like, yo, I called it in the last issue, like they're gonna make him be able to use Venom just like Bane does, and da 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 da. But then Alfred goes on to express to him that, that wouldn't exactly work because he doesn't operate that way. Bane does not operate that way. He's not going to attack you head on. He's going to attack you where it matters most. And that's where we get the last panel of him pulling up on the Riddler, Penguin, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Harvey Dent that's also left in there. And it's just all of his friends that he's going to now target first before he targets the Batman, to try and get at him psychologically first and break him in a different way. I really love this interpretation of these guys, both of them really. There hasn't been a single issue in this story that's been bad. There's some that are slower, but there's none that are really like super bad or anything like that. And I'm really excited to see where they go with it. I want them to introduce more of the Rogues Gallery and see how they get to where they are. Obviously, we're still super early in the whole, story of it. But I want to see what happens with Joker and what's the whole idea with him, because he's like this fancy guy who looks sane, really. He seems like just a master manipulator, which is a very unique version of the Joker. But yeah, with that being said, those are just my opinions on like the whole issues and everything. I'd love to hear what you guys thought about it. If you guys gave them a read. Jeez, what is going on with me today? I feel like I can't talk at all. But let me know what you guys think about it too. If you do get the chance or the opportunity to read them, drop me a like, comment, and subscribe down below. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.